Greetings everyone, welcome to Just Advanced, and this game is from Fujairah Global 2025. With the white pieces we have our speed demon, we have Nihal Sarin, and with the black pieces we have Alexander Motylev. And this game is really amazing. So without further ado, let's start with this game. There are so many amazing lines, so many tactical shots, and most of it all it's a grind. So just buckle up. I mean, it's gonna be a few insane moves, and it's a 70 moves long game. So somewhere along the line you're gonna be bored, but I'm going to try my best to keep you updated and interested with all the amazing tactical shots and features and amazing checkmate. You're going to absolutely love that. So without further ado, let's start with this. D4, D5, C4, and C6. We go into the Slav defense. We have knight to F3, knight to F6, knight to C3, and E6. Queen to D3, but just A6 now, and we have B3. Now just trying to get this bishop fiend get out and get on a very nice diagonal, because you know that black is most likely going to castle kingside here. Knight bd7, g3, and just bishop to b4. We have bishop to d2, castles, bishop to g2, d captures, and now just going for c captures. So you don't want to give the bishop pair early on with the like something like of Nims or kind of setup, but here c5 now, and now it's very interesting, because here rook to b1, and this is definitely something that Nihal prepared. This is obviously preparation. Here bishop to a5, but just castles, c captures. Now going for queen captures, rook to e8, and now just rook f to d1. So there's a lot of pressure against the d file. Black's issue is the bishop is not developed. You cannot move it here. Most likely you want to try and fiend keto it, but even if you fiend keto it, there is already a Catalan bishop eyeing your rook. So first moving the rook, maybe just preparing b6 or something would have been the best option. But again, it's going to be very much difficult to update those, just develop those pieces, because you can see that it's just very bad piece. e5 was played here, but now just comes queen to h4, and now Nihal is saying that, well, if you're not going to push on the queen side, you're not going to push on the king side, I am going to attack you on the king side. And that's exactly what he's going to be doing. Here h6, do not allow the bishop to jump in with the tempo, and now just going for knight to e1, just trying to remaneuver that knight towards the perfect square. But here just rook to b8, finally going for that idea. But is it a bit too late? Well, we'll just see, because here knight to c2 was played, knight to f8, but now just comes this knight to d5, very nicely centralizing the knight, and also asking, what are you going to do? Are you going to trade that with your with your knight, or are you interested maybe in development? Here just bishop caps on d2 was played, rook captures, and knight 8 to h7. And that was the problem with moving the knight back. Those knights were there, were perfectly defending each other, and there was no issues in the position. But when you play it like this, then you have to understand that if you go here attacking the queen, there are chances where I can just ruin your pawn structure after queen captures, and this captures. So something like that, maybe you're just not gonna like. So here just knight captures now, queen captures, with knight captures. That's why that move was important. But now just comes bishop to c6, a beautiful move by Nihal, attacking the rook. And it's asking just a nice question. Sometimes that's all you have to do in games. You have to ask your opponent questions, that what are you going to do about that piece? That piece is the one causing all of these problems. You cannot push, you cannot double push, and now I'm attacking your rook, and somewhere along this line you won't be able to move the bishop away, because my rook and the bishop are attacking your backwards pawn. So how are you ever going to develop? And now your rook is under attack. Where are you moving the rook? Because if you go rook to f8 for instance, then the issue is knight to e3. Knight is jumping in, and most likely if you trade, then I'm getting a very nice pass pawn, and early in the game I'm going to be pushing that pawn. Your bishop is underdeveloped. I'm having an amazing game. And even if you push b6 and you think that maybe that solves your troubles, well, it just makes them much worse, because now comes rook d to b2, and now there is just, you cannot save that pawn. And even if you push b5 to try and create some sort of counterplay, here just c captures, a captures, and just a4, and now your game is just busted. You cannot do anything. Even if you play b4, we have rook captures, and after rook captures, it's just completely losing. We have a passed a pawn, queening square is defended by the bishop, and most likely it's going to be a very nice easy win for Nihal. But unfortunately here, after bishop to c6, rook to e7 was played. But is it enough to be able to defend that backwards piece and not probably lose some material trying to do the same? Because now just comes rook to d8, and now king moves, knight goes to e3. It's a similar sort of setup we saw here, but now unfortunately all of back rank is covered. Just one underdeveloped piece can wreak such havoc into your position. And yeah, that's very much true. But here just rook to c7 was tried, attacking the bishop moves, but now just comes b5. Finally you are able to get rid of all of those weakness. But here just bishop to h3, and now it's very it's very difficult life you're going to lead. B captures now, but just comes rook captures, bishop captures, and so you've given up the exchange to try and create some sort of counterplay. But I don't think that's going to be enough. Even with the evaluation bar, you can see it's just very difficult position. So a bishop to f3, because there could be some back rank issues here with the bishop on being on this diagonal. c3 now trying to push that pass pawn, and that pass pawn is quite nicely advanced, so maybe there's some hope for black after all. But now Nihal realizes that he has to bring one of the rooks back, because hey, that pass pawn is a bit too advanced. You don't want to give it too much room. A rook to b1, but just bishop to e6. Rook to c1 now, but now just e4, and now trying to open up much more pieces. Also getting rid of your trying a little bit of a backward pawn. Rook to c2, we have e captures, bishop to d7. Now just not allowing that bishop to jump in and just get rid of that pass pawn very easily. G4 was played, but now comes G5, and G5 is maybe weakening a position a bit too much. You'll understand what I mean by this, because rook is already covering a lot of those squares. Knight is going to be jumping in into the square. I mean, not now because the bishop is covering it, but somewhere along the line, and you can understand there could be some issues with checkmating ideas. King to f2 now, but just h5. We have h4, and now just comes king to g6. H captures, king captures, and now g captures, king captures. A rook to c1 was played, but now just comes this rook to c5. And this rook to c5 is not a good move. Even with the look of it, with the position that you see here, you have to understand the king is on an open file, and not only that, you have two rooks covering the first rank and the eighth rank, so you know how dangerous it can be. And that's the entire idea behind it not being a good move, because here you could actually go for rook to h8, and the problem is after king to g5, rook to g1, king to f4, rook to h4, king to e5, and after rook to g5, king to d6, rook to d4 check, king to c6. But now just comes rook caps on c5, king captures, and now rook to c4 check, and now you're losing the pass pawn. And this was the entire idea. After king captures, rook captures, that pass pawn was the backbone of your entire position, and now losing it is just completely over. And the up the exchange, you have no compensation. Most likely it's going to be ending it in a few more moves. I mean, it's still, you have to work for your meal, because there are two pieces, and knight against bishop with equal pawns, so it's going to be a little bit difficult, but most likely it's white is going to be the one pushing, and in Nihal's hand it's most likely going to be winning. But here after rook to c5, Nihal went for knight to d1, and it's just not a move you want to play. I mean, why are you pushing it back? All you can just push it, and it's just not the way you want to play. But again, Nihal was a little bit low on time. Hey, c2, we have knight to e3 and bishop to e6, and yes, you heard it right, Nihal was a little bit low on time. I mean, it's not like always he's a speed demon, so he's always going to be up on time, but just the way it is. Hey, a3 was tried, but just rook to c3, and now just comes this rook to g1. He prepares mate, but the issue is it's a bit too late. If you had gone for rook to h8 right away, and you saw that there was some lines where you're winning that pass pawn and you're just completely exchanging the rooks, going into an endgame is just completely winning, he would have gone for it. But now it's a little bit different story. King to h6 now, and now, I mean, there is no mate in this position. So here just rook to c1, rook caps on a3, rook caps on c2. Now you have an a pass pawn, and if you're able to defend it with the bishop and maybe just push it and get the knights towards the pass pawn and get your king to safety, I mean, it's easier said than done, but this is all the steps that you need to do definitely in that order to be able to get something out of this game. But this is just not happening. Even if the evaluation says that it's a draw, it's just, you cannot play perfect moves with 6 minutes on your clock against the best players in the world. Here just a5 was played, rook to d6, we have king to g7, rook to a6, now a4, but rook to c5, and now you know what's coming. I mean, somewhere along the line you're going to get there, and it's going to be completely winning. Rook to a2 check, king to g3, king to g6, and now in this position, instead of king to g6, if you had actually thought about playing a move like a3, then I think that would have been the best move, because after rook to c3, if you dare to go rook to c3 in this position, you have to understand that this would be very bad for you. I mean, it looks so tempting, it feels like a natural move, but unfortunately you're just getting mated here, and black is winning. Can you imagine in this version black winning? That's absolutely insane. Knight to h5 check, after king to h4 you play rook to h2 check, king to g5, and now the beautiful pawn checkmate f6, because bishop covers this entire diagonal, knight covers the f4 square, rook covers the h4 square, and king covers g6 and h6. So this would be very terrible way to actually fall into a checkmating trap. But yeah, I mean, not gonna happen. I mean, come on, these are top players. We have king to g6, but now just rook a to a5, knight to d7. Knight to d7 was probably the move that ended it all for black, because you don't want to get the knight out of there. That knight was doing a very fine job of covering all the squares, and now it's just in the wrong square. Here rook c to b5, rook to a1, and just f4. We have rook to a3, king to g2, but now just king to g7, rook to g5 check, and now just king moving back, rook to a8 check, king to e7, rook to a7, king to d6, rook to a6, king to c7. And now you understand that once your king's safety has been hindered, it's just your king is going to be running into a lot of checks, and some pieces and material is going to fall, and that's about it. Rook g to a5, knight to b6, rook rook to b5. And now you have to understand that that knight is just very difficult to save it. So here rook to a2 check was played, king moves, and now just rook to a1 check, king to e2, knight to d7 now. But now this comes f5, you have to move the bishop away, and now either that pawn falls or either you move it somewhere that's very passive. Bishop to b3 was played, so that bishop and pawn are very nicely defended. But here just knight to d5 check was played, and you have to trade, otherwise you just lose material. So here now just going, but now comes this rook captures on d5, and now it's very difficult. Here knight to b6 was played to try and attack, but no, it's just two rooks against a rook and a knight and a few pawns, but it's just going to be over soon. Rook to b5, we have knight to c8, rook to c5, and just king to d7, knight to f6, rook to f6, now attacking the pawn. And how do you defend here? King to e7 was tried, but now just comes this rook f to c6, attacking the rook, and both pairs are now playing on 30 seconds, and some blunders are bound to happen. Knight to d6, rook to d5, and now how do you defend that knight? Here knight to e4 was tried, but just f6, and here knight caps on f6 was played, but now comes rook to e5. And now either you go here, wherever you go, you're losing the knight next, and somewhere along the line you're going to losing the pawn. You're going to trade that rook, the one rook and one pawn and king. This is completely winning. And unfortunately, in this position, Alexander Motylev resigned the game, and Nihal Sarin, our speed demon, got this spectacular victory in an insane 70 move grind. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with games like these, so stay tuned to the channel and stay updated, because a lot of these games gets lost in the mix. And yeah, I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you all for watching.